Question 1. To address the challenge of presenting a comprehensive and truthful application for the Farabi University College entrance exam, an applicant has gathered additional documents beyond their standard academic transcripts. Which of the following actions best reflects adherence to the university's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for applicants? Option A. Including a fabricated certificate of participation in a prestigious international competition that the applicant did not actually attend to bolster their profile. Option B. Attaching a lengthy essay detailing unrelated hobbies and interests that have no bearing on academic performance or the chosen program, hoping to impress the admissions committee with breadth of personality. Option C. Providing a letter of recommendation from a family friend who has no professional or academic connection to the applicant, claiming they can attest to the applicant's character. Option D. Submitting a detailed portfolio showcasing personal projects that demonstrate problem-solving skills relevant to the chosen field of study, alongside a brief, honest explanation of any limitations in formal coursework related to those projects. Correct answer is D. Submitting a detailed portfolio showcasing personal projects that demonstrate problem-solving skills relevant to the chosen field of study, alongside a brief, honest explanation of any limitations in formal coursework related to those projects. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the Farabi University College's admission policies and the ethical considerations involved in the application process. The applicant must navigate the tension between presenting their qualifications effectively and adhering to the integrity of the application. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any supplementary information provided is truthful, relevant, and does not misrepresent their academic standing or extracurricular achievements. The correct approach involves providing accurate and verifiable information that directly supports the applicant's suitability for the chosen program, while also acknowledging any areas where they might be less experienced. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principle of honesty and integrity, which is paramount in academic and professional settings. Specifically, the Farabi University College's entrance exam guidelines, as outlined in their official prospectus, emphasize the importance of truthful self-representation and the submission of genuine academic records. Providing additional, relevant evidence of skills or experiences that directly complement the program's requirements, without exaggeration, is a professional and ethical way to strengthen an application. An incorrect approach would be to fabricate or significantly embellish achievements. This violates the core principle of academic integrity and the explicit guidelines of the Farabi University College, which prohibit misrepresentation of qualifications. Such actions could lead to disqualification from the entrance exam and potential future academic repercussions. Another incorrect approach is to submit irrelevant information that does not add value to the application and may be perceived as an attempt to distract from weaker areas. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of what constitutes a strong and focused application, and it fails to adhere to the spirit of providing pertinent supporting evidence. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes honesty, relevance, and adherence to established guidelines. This involves a thorough review of the application requirements, an honest self-assessment of qualifications and experiences, and a careful consideration of how any supplementary information will be perceived by the admissions committee. The framework should include a step for verifying the accuracy of all submitted information and ensuring it directly supports the applicant's case without resorting to misleading tactics. Question 2. The review process indicates that an applicant for the Farabi University College has submitted transcripts showing a slightly lower score in a specific subject than what was reported on their initial application form. The applicant has provided a brief explanation citing a clerical error at their previous institution. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Initiate a formal review of the applicant's file, requesting further documentation or clarification from the applicant and their previous institution regarding the score discrepancy, while acknowledging the applicant's explanation. Option B. Contact the applicant's previous institution directly to verify the scores without informing the applicant of this action. Option C. Accept the application as is, assuming the applicant's overall qualifications outweigh the minor score discrepancy, and proceed with admission. Option D. Immediately reject the application due to the inconsistency between the submitted scores and the application form, as this indicates a lack of attention to detail. The correct answer is A. Initiate a formal review of the applicant's file, requesting further documentation or clarification from the applicant and their previous institution regarding the score discrepancy, while acknowledging the applicant's explanation. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide fair and transparent admissions processes. The admissions committee must make a decision that upholds the established criteria while also considering the specific circumstances presented. Careful judgment is required to avoid both undue leniency and overly rigid application of rules, which could lead to unfair outcomes or compromise the quality of the student body. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented review of the applicant's file, considering all submitted materials and the stated reasons for the discrepancy. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness and due process, ensuring that decisions are based on evidence and established procedures. Specifically, it adheres to the Farabi University College's stated admission guidelines, which emphasize holistic review and the consideration of extenuating circumstances, provided they are adequately supported. This methodical process allows for an informed and defensible decision, minimizing the risk of arbitrary or biased judgment. An incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the application based solely on the discrepancy without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of legitimate reasons for the difference in scores and violates the principle of providing an applicant an opportunity to explain. It also disregards the university's stated commitment to a comprehensive review process. Another incorrect approach would be to accept the application without any further scrutiny or documentation, simply because the applicant is otherwise qualified. This undermines the integrity of the admission standards and could set a precedent for overlooking discrepancies, potentially admitting students who do not meet the required academic benchmarks. It fails to uphold the principle of consistent application of admission criteria. A third incorrect approach would be to contact the applicant's previous institution to verify the scores without informing the applicant first. This breaches confidentiality and could be perceived as an adversarial action, damaging the applicant's trust and the university's reputation. It fails to adhere to ethical practices regarding applicant privacy and communication. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established policies. This involves 1. Understanding the relevant policies and guidelines, 2. Gathering all necessary information and evidence, 3. Objectively evaluating the information against the established criteria, 4. Considering any mitigating or extenuating circumstances presented, 5. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the final decision, 6. Communicating the decision clearly and respectfully to the applicant. Question 3. What factors determine the most effective strategy for a prospective student to present their qualifications for admission to Farabi University College, considering the college's internal admission guidelines and the need for a holistic assessment? Option A. Relying on personal recommendations and networking to gain an advantage, with less emphasis on formal academic achievements or application essays. Option B. Focusing exclusively on achieving the highest possible scores on standardized entrance examinations, as these are often the sole determinant of eligibility. Option C. Emphasizing participation in a wide range of extracurricular activities, regardless of academic performance, to demonstrate a broad range of interests. Option D. Prioritizing academic transcripts and standardized test scores, while also thoroughly detailing relevant extracurricular activities and crafting a compelling personal statement that articulates motivations and future aspirations. Correct answer is D. Prioritizing academic transcripts and standardized test scores, while also thoroughly detailing relevant extracurricular activities and crafting a compelling personal statement that articulates motivations and future aspirations. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a prospective student to navigate the Farabi University College's admission process, which is governed by specific internal regulations and potentially broader educational guidelines. The challenge lies in understanding which criteria are paramount and how they are weighed, ensuring that the student's application accurately reflects their suitability and adherence to the college's standards. Careful judgment is required to prioritize the most impactful factors for a successful application. The correct approach involves a comprehensive evaluation of academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, and personal statements, as these are typically the core components assessed by university admissions committees. This approach is justified by the implicit regulatory framework of university admissions, which aims to identify candidates who demonstrate both academic potential and a well-rounded profile, aligning with the college's educational mission and standards. An approach that solely focuses on academic scores, neglecting other aspects of the application, is incorrect because it fails to acknowledge the holistic review process common in higher education. This overlooks the regulatory expectation that admissions should consider a candidate's broader capabilities and potential contributions to the university community. An approach that prioritizes extracurricular activities above all else, while downplaying academic performance, is also incorrect. This violates the fundamental regulatory principle that academic preparedness is a prerequisite for success in a university-level program. Furthermore, an approach that relies heavily on subjective factors or personal connections without demonstrable merit would be ethically and regulatorily unsound, as it bypasses the established criteria for fair and equitable assessment. Professionals in admissions or prospective students preparing applications should employ a decision-making framework that involves understanding the stated admission criteria, gathering all relevant documentation, presenting a balanced and truthful representation of qualifications, and seeking clarification on any ambiguities in the process. This ensures adherence to the established regulatory and ethical standards of the institution. Question 4. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of unusual activity associated with a student's online submission, raising concerns about potential academic misconduct. As an administrator at Farabi University College, what is the most appropriate initial step to take? Option A. Immediately inform the student that their submission is flagged for review and request an explanation. Option B. Temporarily suspend the student's access to online submission platforms pending a full review. Option C. Discuss the observed activity with other faculty members to gauge their opinions on the student's behavior. Option D. Initiate a formal investigation process according to the university's established academic integrity policies. The correct answer is A. Immediately inform the student that their submission is flagged for review and request an explanation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to interpret and act upon information from a monitoring system that indicates a potential breach of academic integrity. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for thorough investigation with the principles of fairness and due process for the student. A hasty or biased response could have severe consequences for the student's academic career and the reputation of Farabi University College. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is based on objective evidence and adheres to established university policies. The correct approach involves initiating a formal investigation process as outlined by Farabi University College's academic integrity policies. This approach is correct because it upholds the principles of due process and fairness. By following the established procedures, the university ensures that the student has an opportunity to respond to the allegations, present their side of the story, and that a neutral body reviews the evidence. This aligns with the ethical obligation to treat all students equitably and to ensure that disciplinary actions are taken only after a thorough and impartial assessment. Regulatory frameworks governing educational institutions typically mandate such procedures to protect student rights and maintain academic standards. An incorrect approach would be to immediately impose a penalty or dismiss the student based solely on the monitoring system's alert. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of system error, misinterpretation of data, or extenuating circumstances. Such an action would violate the student's right to a fair hearing and could lead to legal challenges and damage to the institution's credibility. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the alert altogether. This would represent a dereliction of duty, as it would allow potential academic misconduct to go unaddressed, undermining the integrity of the educational process and potentially disadvantaging students who adhere to academic honesty. A third incorrect approach would be to discuss the matter with colleagues not directly involved in the investigation, or to share the student's information without proper authorization. This would breach confidentiality and potentially prejudice the investigation, violating ethical guidelines and university privacy policies. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and procedures. This framework involves 1. Recognizing the potential issue and its implications. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and guidelines regarding academic integrity and investigations. 3. Gathering all available objective evidence. 4. Initiating the formal investigation process as prescribed. 5. Maintaining confidentiality throughout the process. 6. Ensuring impartiality and fairness to the student. 7. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made. Question 5. Governance review demonstrates that while the Farabi University College entrance exam is generally effective, there are opportunities to enhance its predictive validity for student success. To achieve this, a department head proposes accessing the raw, identifiable data of all applicants from the past 3 years to conduct a detailed statistical analysis. This analysis would involve correlating applicant responses to specific questions with their subsequent academic performance in their first year at the college. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Exam Administration Committee? Option A. Share the raw, identifiable applicant data with the department head and their research team with a request that they maintain confidentiality to expedite the improvement of the exam. Option B. Conduct an analysis using anonymized and aggregated data, focusing on question difficulty and discrimination indices, and correlating these with broad academic performance metrics, while ensuring all analysis is performed by authorized personnel under strict confidentiality. Option C. Grant the department head direct access to the raw, identifiable applicant data as requested to facilitate a comprehensive analysis that could significantly improve the exam. Option D. Decline any data analysis that could potentially identify individual applicants, even if anonymized, to completely avoid any risk of privacy breaches. The correct answer is B. Conduct an analysis using anonymized and aggregated data, focusing on question difficulty and discrimination indices, and correlating these with broad academic performance metrics, while ensuring all analysis is performed by authorized personnel under strict confidentiality. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The Farabi University College entrance exam framework, as per its established guidelines, emphasizes integrity and fairness in the admissions process. The challenge lies in obtaining necessary insights for improving the exam without compromising the confidentiality of applicant information or violating the principles of data privacy that underpin fair assessment. The correct approach involves a structured and authorized process for data analysis. This means that any review of applicant data must be conducted by designated personnel under strict confidentiality agreements and for the sole purpose of improving the examination process. This aligns with the Farabi University College's commitment to ethical data handling and the regulatory framework's implicit requirement for responsible data management in academic assessments. The focus is on aggregate, anonymized data that reveals trends and areas for improvement without identifying individuals. An incorrect approach that involves direct access to identifiable applicant information by unauthorized individuals or for purposes beyond exam improvement would constitute a serious breach of privacy and ethical conduct. This violates the trust placed in the institution by applicants and could lead to reputational damage and potential regulatory sanctions. Even if not explicitly detailed in the entrance exam guidelines, the overarching principles of academic integrity and responsible institutional practice are paramount. Another incorrect approach, such as sharing raw, unanonymized data with external parties without explicit consent or a clear legal basis, would similarly undermine confidentiality and could expose the university to legal liabilities. Professionals tasked with such reviews should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes data privacy and ethical considerations. This involves 1. Identifying the objective, what specific improvements are sought. 2. Assessing data requirements, what data is truly necessary to achieve the objective. 3. Evaluating data sensitivity, is the data identifiable? 4. Consulting relevant policies, what are the university's data handling and privacy policies? 5. Seeking authorization, ensure all data access and analysis is approved by the appropriate authorities. 6. Implementing anonymization and aggregation. Where possible, use anonymized and aggregated data to protect individual privacy. 7. Documenting the process. Maintain clear records of data access, analysis, and findings. Question 6. The assessment process reveals a candidate who has demonstrated exceptional academic performance in their secondary education and possesses strong leadership qualities through their involvement in various school clubs. However, their standardized entrance examination score is slightly below the stated minimum threshold for direct admission. The admissions committee must decide whether to proceed with the candidate's application. Option A. Reject the candidate's application outright due to their failure to meet the minimum standardized entrance examination score. Option B. Grant the candidate direct admission, overriding the minimum score requirement due to their strong extracurricular achievements. Option C. Offer the candidate a conditional admission based on their overall profile, with a requirement to achieve a certain GPA in their first semester. Option D. Recommend the candidate for a remedial program before they can be considered for regular admission. The correct answer is C. Offer the candidate a conditional admission based on their overall profile, with a requirement to achieve a certain GPA in their first semester. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a candidate's potential for admission to Farabi University College. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a fair and objective evaluation of diverse applicants, ensuring that the selection process aligns with the college's academic standards and ethical principles. The decision-making framework must prioritize meritocracy while also considering broader institutional goals and fairness. The correct approach involves a holistic review of the candidate's application, considering academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal statements, and any supplementary materials provided. This method is right because it allows for a comprehensive understanding of the applicant's suitability beyond just standardized test scores. It aligns with the principles of equitable access to education and the pursuit of diverse talent, which are implicit in the ethical guidelines of educational institutions. This approach seeks to identify individuals who will not only succeed academically, but also contribute positively to the university community. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on a single metric, such as a specific test score, without considering other aspects of the candidate's profile. This fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of academic potential and can lead to the exclusion of promising candidates who may excel in other areas. Another incorrect approach would be to introduce subjective biases or personal preferences into the evaluation, which violates the principle of fairness and can lead to discriminatory practices. Relying on anecdotal evidence or rumors about a candidate rather than verifiable information from their application is also an ethically unsound practice that undermines the integrity of the admissions process. Professionals involved in university admissions should employ a structured decision-making framework that includes clear criteria, standardized evaluation tools, and a review process involving multiple stakeholders. This framework should emphasize objectivity, fairness, and transparency, ensuring that all candidates are assessed against the same benchmarks. Regular training on ethical considerations and unconscious bias is crucial to maintain the integrity of the admissions process. Question 7. Governance review demonstrates a potential vulnerability in the applicant data management system for the Farabi University College entrance exam, suggesting unauthorized access might have occurred. As the admissions officer responsible for overseeing the exam process, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action to address this finding while adhering to the college's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines? Option A. Defer addressing the governance review findings until the next scheduled departmental meeting to avoid causing undue alarm among staff. Option B. Directly access applicant records to cross-reference with known system logs, attempting to identify the source of the potential breach without formal notification. Option C. Immediately initiate a formal, documented investigation by authorized IT personnel, strictly adhering to data privacy protocols and seeking necessary approvals before accessing any applicant data. Option D. Inform all applicants immediately about the potential data vulnerability to ensure transparency, regardless of confirmed breach status. The correct answer is C. Immediately initiate a formal, documented investigation by authorized IT personnel, strictly adhering to data privacy protocols and seeking necessary approvals before accessing any applicant data. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The Farabi University College entrance exam framework, as per its established guidelines, emphasizes the importance of data privacy and the responsible handling of applicant information. A governance review highlighting potential breaches necessitates immediate and thorough investigation, but the method of investigation must adhere strictly to the established protocols to avoid further violations. The correct approach involves initiating a formal, documented investigation that respects the privacy of all applicants. This means gathering information through authorized channels and personnel, ensuring that any access to applicant data is logged and justified, and that the investigation itself is conducted with the utmost discretion. This aligns with the principles of data protection and due diligence expected within the Farabi University College framework, which implicitly requires adherence to ethical conduct and the prevention of unauthorized data access or disclosure. An incorrect approach would be to bypass formal procedures and directly access applicant files without proper authorization or a clear investigative mandate. This could lead to unauthorized data access, violating the privacy rights of applicants and potentially contravening internal college policies on data security and access control. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the governance review findings, which would be a failure of professional responsibility and a dereliction of duty to address potential systemic issues. This inaction could allow vulnerabilities to persist, leading to more significant breaches in the future and a failure to uphold the integrity of the admissions process. Professionals facing such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and regulations. This involves 1. Acknowledging the reported issue and its potential severity. 2. Consulting relevant internal policies and external regulatory guidelines specific to Farabi University College. 3. Identifying authorized personnel and procedures for investigation. 4. Implementing the investigation in a manner that minimizes risk to data privacy and maintains confidentiality. 5. Documenting all steps taken and findings. 6. Reporting outcomes and recommending corrective actions. Question 8. Governance review demonstrates that during the administration of the Farabi University College entrance exam, a proctor observed a candidate exhibiting behavior that strongly suggests they may have access to unauthorized pre-exam materials. The proctor is unsure of the exact nature of the potential misconduct, but is confident that the candidate's actions are highly irregular and could compromise the integrity of the examination. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the proctor, strictly adhering to the Farabi University College entrance exam regulatory framework? Option A. Approach the candidate privately after the examination concludes and inquire about their unusual behavior. Option B. Ignore the behavior, assuming it is a misunderstanding or not significant enough to warrant intervention during the exam. Option C. Continue to monitor the candidate closely for further evidence of misconduct while making a detailed, objective note of the observed behavior and reporting it to the chief invigilator or designated examination authority at the earliest opportunity. Option D. Discreetly confiscate the candidate's materials and immediately dismiss the candidate from the examination hall. Correct answer is D. Discreetly confiscate the candidate's materials and immediately dismiss the candidate from the examination hall. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data and ensure fair competition. The Farabi University College entrance exam regulations likely emphasize integrity, fairness, and the prevention of undue advantage. The challenge lies in identifying and acting upon potential breaches of these principles without compromising the examination process itself or violating privacy. The correct approach involves a structured, evidence-based investigation that adheres strictly to the established examination protocols and relevant Farabi University College guidelines. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the examination process by gathering verifiable evidence of any potential misconduct. It then involves reporting these findings through the designated channels within the university's examination board or disciplinary committee, allowing for a formal and impartial review. This ensures that any actions taken are based on facts and are in line with the university's commitment to fairness and academic honesty, as mandated by its internal regulations and any overarching educational policies. An incorrect approach that involves immediate, unsubstantiated accusations or the premature disclosure of suspicions to unauthorized parties would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to reputational damage for the individuals involved, undermine the credibility of the examination process, and potentially violate privacy regulations or university policies regarding the handling of sensitive information. Furthermore, acting unilaterally without following established procedures risks procedural unfairness and could lead to the invalidation of any subsequent disciplinary actions. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed anomaly, assuming it is insignificant or not within one's direct purview. This failure to act, when there is a reasonable suspicion of a breach of examination integrity, violates the professional duty to uphold the standards of the examination. It allows potential misconduct to go unaddressed, thereby compromising the fairness of the entrance exam for all other candidates and potentially setting a precedent for future breaches. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant examination regulations and ethical codes. When an anomaly is detected, the first step is to document the observation objectively. Next, assess the potential implications of the anomaly in relation to the principles of fairness and integrity. Then, consult the established protocols for reporting and investigating suspected irregularities. If the anomaly suggests a potential breach, the appropriate course of action is to report it to the designated authority within the examination framework for further investigation, rather than taking direct action or ignoring it. Question 9. Governance review demonstrates a potential vulnerability in the system used to store applicant data for the Farabi University College entrance exam, raising concerns about unauthorized access. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the college administration? Option A. Immediately issue a public statement to all applicants informing them of the potential data vulnerability to ensure transparency. Option B. Initiate a comprehensive internal investigation, adhering to established data protection policies and relevant national regulations, to assess the extent of the vulnerability, identify any breaches, and develop a remediation plan while maintaining strict confidentiality. Option C. Disregard the governance review findings as they are preliminary and await a confirmed breach before taking action. Option D. Conduct a quick, informal inquiry with IT staff to gauge the severity of the issue without formal documentation. The correct answer is B. Initiate a comprehensive internal investigation, adhering to established data protection policies and relevant national regulations, to assess the extent of the vulnerability, identify any breaches, and develop a remediation plan while maintaining strict confidentiality. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The Farabi University College entrance exam framework, as per its established guidelines, emphasizes the integrity of the examination process and the confidentiality of candidate information. A governance review highlighting potential data breaches necessitates a proactive and compliant response. The correct approach involves a structured, transparent, and legally compliant investigation. This means initiating an internal review that adheres strictly to the college's data protection policies and any relevant national regulations governing educational institutions and personal data. This approach prioritizes identifying the root cause of the potential breach, assessing its impact, and implementing corrective measures to prevent future occurrences, all while maintaining confidentiality and due process for all parties involved. This aligns with the ethical imperative to safeguard candidate data and the regulatory requirement to report and address security vulnerabilities. An incorrect approach would be to immediately and broadly communicate the potential breach to all candidates without a thorough investigation. This could cause undue panic, damage the college's reputation, and potentially alert malicious actors. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the governance review's findings, which would be a direct violation of regulatory oversight and ethical responsibility, exposing the college to significant legal and reputational risks. Finally, an approach that involves selectively sharing information or blaming individuals without a formal process would undermine trust and violate principles of fairness and due process, as well as data privacy regulations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the scope and nature of the issue, consulting relevant policies and regulations, forming a dedicated team to investigate, documenting all findings meticulously, and communicating transparently and appropriately with stakeholders only after a clear understanding of the situation and a plan for remediation is established. Question 10. Governance review demonstrates that a significant number of prospective students have expressed concerns regarding the specific weighting of different subject areas within the Farabi University College entrance exam. To address these concerns and ensure transparency, a faculty member responsible for exam preparation materials needs to obtain clarification on the official weighting scheme. However, they are aware that this information is considered sensitive until the official exam release. Which of the following is the most appropriate course of action for the faculty member? Option A. Rely on anecdotal evidence and common assumptions about exam structures from previous years to inform their understanding of the current weighting. Option B. Discreetly approach senior faculty members in relevant departments to gather informal insights into the likely weighting of subject areas. Option C. Formally request the official weighting scheme from the University Examinations Committee through the designated administrative channels, adhering to all established protocols for handling sensitive exam information. Option D. Publicly post a general inquiry on the university's internal faculty forum, asking for any available information regarding exam weighting. The correct answer is C. Formally request the official weighting scheme from the University Examinations Committee through the designated administrative channels, adhering to all established protocols for handling sensitive exam information. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The Farabi University College entrance exam framework, like many academic and professional bodies, emphasizes integrity, fairness, and the responsible handling of confidential information. The challenge lies in identifying the appropriate channels and methods for obtaining necessary information without compromising these principles. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to established university policies and procedures for accessing and disseminating information related to the entrance exam. This means utilizing official communication channels, seeking authorization from the relevant administrative bodies, and ensuring that any information shared is done so transparently and in accordance with privacy regulations. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant because it upholds the principles of data protection and ensures that the integrity of the examination process is maintained. It prevents unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive information, which could lead to accusations of bias or unfair advantage, thereby safeguarding the reputation of Farabi University College. An incorrect approach would be to bypass official channels and directly contact faculty members or administrative staff for informal information. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it circumvents established protocols designed to ensure data security and fairness. Such actions could be construed as an attempt to gain an unfair advantage or to improperly influence the examination process. Another incorrect approach would be to rely on rumors or unofficial sources. This is a failure because it introduces the risk of misinformation, which could lead to flawed decision-making and potentially compromise the integrity of the entrance exam. It also demonstrates a lack of respect for the formal processes and the confidentiality expected within an academic institution. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical guidelines. This involves first identifying the specific information required, then determining the official channels through which this information can be legitimately obtained, and finally, seeking the necessary approvals before acting. If unsure, consulting with a supervisor or the relevant compliance department is a crucial step in ensuring that all actions are in line with regulatory requirements and ethical standards. Question 11. Governance review demonstrates that an individual involved in the Farabi University College entrance exam administration has received an unsolicited offer of confidential examination materials from an external source, claiming these materials are pre-release and could be used to enhance the exam's security by identifying weaknesses. What is the most appropriate course of action according to the Farabi University College entrance exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Ignore the offer, as it is unsolicited and may not be genuine, and continue with standard examination procedures. Option B. Accept the materials to analyze potential vulnerabilities, and then use the information to strengthen the exam's security measures. Option C. Immediately reject the offer, refuse to engage further with the source, and report the incident to the designated Examination Integrity Committee. Option D. Discreetly investigate the source of the offer to understand their motives before deciding on a course of action. Correct answer is C. Immediately reject the offer, refuse to engage further with the source, and report the incident to the designated Examination Integrity Committee. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data and ensure fair competition. The Farabi University College entrance exam regulations, as per the provided framework, emphasize integrity, fairness, and the prevention of any form of academic dishonesty or unfair advantage. The challenge lies in discerning how to respond to an unsolicited offer of potentially compromised information without violating these core principles. The correct approach involves immediately rejecting the offer and reporting the incident through the designated channels. This aligns with the Farabi University College entrance exam's commitment to maintaining the integrity of the admission process. By refusing to engage with the offer and reporting it, the individual upholds the principles of fairness and prevents any potential breach of confidentiality or manipulation of the examination process. This action demonstrates adherence to the ethical standards expected of all stakeholders involved in the entrance examination. An incorrect approach would be to accept the information, even with the intention of using it to improve the exam. This would constitute a direct violation of the exam's integrity and fairness principles, as it would create an unfair advantage for some candidates and undermine the validity of the entire assessment. Accepting such information, regardless of the purported motive, is a form of academic dishonesty and a breach of trust. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the offer without reporting it. This inaction, while not actively participating in the wrongdoing, still fails to uphold the responsibility to protect the integrity of the examination process. By not reporting, the individual allows a potential threat to the exam's fairness to persist, which could be exploited by others. This passive stance is contrary to the proactive measures required to safeguard the examination's credibility. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the governing regulations and ethical codes. When faced with an offer of information that could compromise the integrity of an examination, the first step is to recognize the potential ethical and regulatory implications. The next step is to consult the relevant guidelines, which in this case would be the Farabi University College entrance exams framework. This framework mandates a commitment to fairness and integrity. Therefore, the decision must prioritize these principles. The professional should then take immediate action to reject the offer and report the incident to the appropriate authority within the university, ensuring that the process is documented and handled according to established procedures. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are not based on personal judgment alone, but are grounded in regulatory compliance and ethical responsibility. Question 12. Governance review demonstrates that the Farabi University College Entrance Exam Committee requires clarification on the scope and format of the upcoming examination to ensure fair preparation for all applicants. The committee chair is considering several methods to gather this information. Which of the following represents the most appropriate and ethically sound approach for the committee chair to take? Option A. Discreetly inquire with current students who have recently taken the entrance exam about the types of questions they recall being asked. Option B. Directly contact individual examination supervisors and ask them for specific examples of questions that might appear on the exam. Option C. Conduct an online search for any previously leaked examination materials or question banks to understand the general difficulty and subject areas. Option D. Formally submit a detailed request for clarification to the Farabi University College Academic Affairs Office, outlining the specific areas of concern regarding the examination scope and format. Correct answer is D. Formally submit a detailed request for clarification to the Farabi University College Academic Affairs Office, outlining the specific areas of concern regarding the examination scope and format. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The Farabi University College entrance exam framework, like many academic and professional environments, emphasizes integrity, fairness, and the responsible handling of confidential material. The challenge lies in identifying the appropriate channels and methods for obtaining necessary information without compromising these principles. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to established university protocols for information access and dissemination. This means utilizing official communication channels and seeking authorization through the designated administrative bodies. This method ensures that information is handled transparently, legally, and ethically, aligning with the principles of good governance and data protection as implicitly understood within the Farabi University College framework. It respects the hierarchical structure and the defined roles within the institution, preventing unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive examination details. An incorrect approach that involves directly contacting examination supervisors for specific questions before the exam is flawed because it bypasses official channels and could lead to the premature disclosure of confidential examination content. This action undermines the integrity of the examination process and violates the trust placed in individuals involved in its administration. It creates an unfair advantage for certain candidates and compromises the validity of the entrance exam results. Another incorrect approach, which is to search for leaked examination materials online, is fundamentally unethical and illegal. This action not only breaches academic integrity, but also potentially violates intellectual property laws and university regulations concerning examination security. Engaging in such behavior demonstrates a disregard for the established rules and ethical standards expected of all members of the academic community. A third incorrect approach, which is to ask current students about the types of questions they encountered in previous years without official guidance, is problematic. While seemingly less severe, it still skirts the edges of ethical conduct. Without official sanction, this can lead to the spread of anecdotal information that may be inaccurate or misleading, and it still represents an attempt to gain an advantage through unofficial means, potentially distorting the preparation process for future applicants. The professional decision-making process in such situations should begin with identifying the objective, understanding the exam scope and format. Next, one must consult the official Farabi University College guidelines and regulations pertaining to entrance examinations and information access. If clarification or specific information is needed, the appropriate step is to formally approach the designated examination committee or administrative office through official channels. This ensures that all actions are compliant, ethical, and contribute to maintaining the integrity of the academic process. Question 13. System analysis indicates that during the Farabi University College entrance exam, an invigilator observes a candidate discreetly looking at notes hidden under their desk. The invigilator is aware that the college has strict policies against academic dishonesty. What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator to take? Option A. Directly approach the student and confiscate the hidden notes. Option B. Immediately report the observed behavior to the chief invigilator or the designated academic integrity officer according to Farabi University College's examination regulations. Option C. Ignore the behavior to avoid disrupting the exam and potentially causing a scene. Option D. Discreetly signal to the student that their actions have been noticed, hoping they will stop. Correct answer is B. Immediately report the observed behavior to the chief invigilator or the designated academic integrity officer according to Farabi University College's examination regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate needs of a student with the established academic integrity policies of Farabi University College. The pressure to assist a struggling student, especially when facing potential academic failure, can lead to ethically compromised decisions. Careful judgment is required to uphold fairness and the integrity of the examination process, while also demonstrating empathy. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the Farabi University College's examination regulations regarding academic misconduct. This means reporting the observed behavior to the appropriate authority, such as the examination invigilator or the academic integrity office, without directly intervening in a way that could be construed as assisting the student or prejudicing the outcome. This upholds the principle of fairness to all students and maintains the credibility of the examination. The Farabi University College entrance exam regulations, as per its stated guidelines, emphasize zero tolerance for cheating and require prompt reporting of any suspected violations to ensure a fair and equitable assessment for all candidates. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed behavior. This fails to uphold the Farabi University College's commitment to academic integrity and creates an unfair advantage for the student, undermining the validity of the examination. It also sets a dangerous precedent, suggesting that such actions are permissible. Another incorrect approach would be to directly confront the student and attempt to retrieve the unauthorized material. While seemingly helpful, this could escalate the situation, potentially leading to a disruption of the examination for other students. Furthermore, it bypasses the established reporting procedures outlined in the Farabi University College's examination guidelines, which mandate reporting to designated authorities for proper investigation and disciplinary action. A third incorrect approach would be to subtly signal to the student that their actions have been noticed, perhaps through eye contact or a gesture. This is unprofessional and does not constitute a proper reporting mechanism. It leaves the situation ambiguous and does not guarantee that the student will cease the misconduct, nor does it initiate the formal process for addressing academic dishonesty as required by the Farabi University College's regulations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established regulations and ethical principles. This involves 1. Observation and identification of potential misconduct. 2. Immediate and discreet reporting to the designated authority as per Farabi University College's examination protocols. 3. Allowing the appropriate authorities to handle the investigation and disciplinary process. 4. Maintaining neutrality and objectivity throughout the process. Question 14. Quality control measures reveal that a significant portion of a candidate's submitted essay for the Farabi University College entrance exam appears to be identical to content found on an external academic website, raising concerns about plagiarism. According to Farabi University College's established entrance examination regulations and academic integrity guidelines, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action? Option A. Contact the external academic website to verify the originality of their content before taking any action. Option B. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the entrance examination and deny their application. Option C. Forward the findings to the designated Academic Integrity Committee for a formal investigation and allow the candidate an opportunity to respond to the allegations. Option D. Issue a warning to the candidate about academic honesty and allow their application to proceed without further scrutiny. The correct answer is B. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the entrance examination and deny their application. Explanation. The scenario presents a professional challenge where a student's submitted work, intended for the Farabi University College entrance exam, exhibits signs of potential academic misconduct. The challenge lies in balancing the need to uphold academic integrity and the fairness of the entrance examination process, with the requirement to follow established university procedures for investigating such allegations. A hasty or biased judgment could unfairly penalize a student or, conversely, compromise the integrity of the admissions process. Therefore, a structured and impartial approach is crucial. The correct approach involves initiating a formal investigation process, as outlined by Farabi University College's academic regulations. This process typically includes notifying the student of the allegations, providing them an opportunity to respond, and convening a disciplinary committee or relevant academic body to review the evidence impartially. This approach is correct because it adheres to the principles of due process and natural justice, ensuring that any decision is based on a thorough and fair examination of facts. It aligns with the university's commitment to academic integrity and its established policies for handling academic misconduct, which are designed to protect the fairness and credibility of its entrance examinations. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student based solely on the initial findings of the quality control measures, without allowing for a formal response or investigation. This fails to provide the student with their right to a fair hearing and may lead to an unjust outcome if the initial findings are misinterpreted or if there are mitigating circumstances. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the findings and proceed with admitting the student, which would undermine the integrity of the entrance examination and potentially admit a candidate who has not met the required standards of academic honesty. This failure to act on credible evidence of misconduct compromises the university's commitment to academic standards and fairness to other applicants. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established procedures and ethical principles. This involves 1. Recognizing the potential issue and its implications for academic integrity. 2. Consulting the relevant university regulations and guidelines for handling academic misconduct. 3. Initiating the prescribed investigation process, ensuring impartiality and due process for the student. 4. Gathering all relevant evidence and allowing the student to present their case. 5. Making a decision based on the evidence and in accordance with university policy. 6. Documenting all steps taken and the rationale for the final decision. Question 15. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a new, innovative program at Farabi University College has the potential to significantly boost enrollment and revenue. However, the program requires a strong foundation in advanced mathematics, which many prospective students may lack. The marketing team is considering emphasizing the program's exciting career prospects and downplaying the rigorous mathematical prerequisites to attract a larger applicant pool. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible approach for the university to take? Option A. Develop marketing materials that accurately represent the program's demanding nature, clearly outlining the mathematical prerequisites and the support systems available for students who need to strengthen their foundational knowledge. Option B. Promise guaranteed job placements in lucrative fields upon graduation, using this as the primary selling point to attract applicants, even if the actual placement rates are not as high. Option C. Focus marketing efforts on the high earning potential and innovative aspects of the program, assuming that students will be motivated to catch up on any necessary mathematical skills once admitted. Option D. Create a simplified admissions process for this program, highlighting that it is accessible to a wider range of students regardless of their prior mathematical proficiency. The correct answer is A. Develop marketing materials that accurately represent the program's demanding nature, clearly outlining the mathematical prerequisites and the support systems available for students who need to strengthen their foundational knowledge. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a new program with potential long-term reputational risks and adherence to the Farabi University College's ethical guidelines for student recruitment. The university must ensure that its marketing efforts are truthful and do not mislead prospective students, even when under pressure to increase enrollment numbers. Careful judgment is required to avoid making promises that cannot be realistically fulfilled, which could lead to student dissatisfaction and damage the college's standing. The correct approach involves prioritizing transparency and ethical recruitment practices over short-term enrollment gains. This aligns with the Farabi University College's commitment to academic integrity and student welfare, as implicitly understood within the context of higher education admissions. Specifically, it requires the marketing team to present the program's benefits accurately, acknowledge any limitations or prerequisites, and ensure that all claims are verifiable. This approach upholds the university's reputation and fosters trust with prospective students, which is a cornerstone of sustainable institutional growth. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on highlighting potential career outcomes without mentioning the rigorous academic demands or the competitive nature of the job market would be ethically flawed. This misrepresents the program's true value and sets unrealistic expectations for students, potentially leading to academic struggles and disillusionment. Such an approach violates the principle of honesty in advertising and could be seen as deceptive. Another incorrect approach that emphasizes the ease of admission and guaranteed placement in high-paying jobs without substantiating these claims is also professionally unacceptable. This is a direct misrepresentation and exploits the aspirations of prospective students. It fails to adhere to the ethical obligation of providing accurate information and could lead to significant reputational damage for the university if discovered. A professional decision-making framework for such situations involves a multifaceted evaluation. First, clearly define the objectives of the marketing campaign. Second, identify all potential benefits and drawbacks, considering both short-term and long-term impacts. Third, assess the ethical implications of each proposed strategy against the Farabi University College's guiding principles and any applicable, though not explicitly stated in this exam context, generally understood ethical standards for educational institutions. Fourth, consult with relevant stakeholders, such as academic departments and admissions officers, to ensure accuracy and feasibility of claims. Finally, select the strategy that maximizes benefits while minimizing ethical and reputational risks, prioritizing student welfare and institutional integrity. Question 16. The efficiency study reveals that the academic department where your sibling is a tenured professor is under review for potential restructuring. You have been assigned to a committee tasked with evaluating the department's performance and recommending future actions. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action? Option A. Proceed with the evaluation as assigned, believing your professional objectivity will prevent any bias. Option B. Discreetly advocate for your sibling's department during committee deliberations to ensure its continued viability. Option C. Declare your familial relationship to the committee chair and recuse yourself from any discussions or decisions directly impacting your sibling's department. Option D. Delegate your committee responsibilities to a junior colleague to avoid any perception of conflict. The correct answer is C. Declare your familial relationship to the committee chair and recuse yourself from any discussions or decisions directly impacting your sibling's department. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a potential conflict of interest that requires careful navigation to uphold academic integrity and ethical standards at Farabi University College. The challenge lies in balancing the need for objective evaluation of academic programs with the personal relationships involved. Adherence to the Farabi University College's Code of Conduct and relevant academic regulations is paramount. The correct approach involves a transparent declaration of the relationship and recusal from the decision-making process concerning the department where the relative is employed. This aligns with principles of impartiality and avoids even the appearance of impropriety, which is a cornerstone of ethical academic governance, and is implicitly supported by the general principles of fairness and objectivity expected in any reputable educational institution's internal regulations. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the evaluation without disclosing the relationship. This failure to disclose is a direct violation of ethical conduct and potentially academic regulations that mandate transparency in situations with potential conflicts of interest. It undermines the credibility of the evaluation and could lead to accusations of bias. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to influence the evaluation process in favor of the relative's department. This constitutes a severe breach of academic ethics and integrity, potentially leading to disciplinary action and damage to the reputation of both the individual and the university. It directly contravenes the spirit and letter of any regulations designed to ensure fair and unbiased academic assessment. A further incorrect approach would be to delegate the evaluation to a subordinate without proper oversight or guidance, hoping to distance oneself from the decision. While this might seem like an attempt to avoid direct involvement, it fails to address the underlying conflict of interest and can still be seen as an abdication of responsibility and an attempt to circumvent ethical obligations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical considerations and regulatory compliance. This involves identifying potential conflicts of interest, understanding relevant institutional policies and codes of conduct, seeking guidance when necessary, and acting with transparency and impartiality. The framework should guide individuals to choose actions that uphold the integrity of their role and the institution. Question 17. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive approach to resource acquisition that supports the college's mission and operational needs. Imagine Farabi University College is facing a significant budget shortfall that could impact the quality of its entrance examination administration and the availability of essential academic resources. A potential major donor has expressed interest in providing substantial financial support, but has subtly indicated that their contribution would be contingent on their child, who is applying for admission, receiving preferential consideration during the entrance exam process. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the ethical and regulatory framework governing university admissions and financial management? Option A. Negotiate a quid pro quo arrangement where a portion of the donation is directly allocated to the admissions department to facilitate a more flexible interpretation of the entrance exam results for the donor's child. Option B. Transparently communicate the university's financial needs to the potential donor Explore various avenues for ethical fundraising without compromising admission standards, and ensure all admission decisions are based solely on merit as per the established entrance exam criteria. Option C. Accept the donor's contribution immediately and instruct the admissions committee to give the donor's child a higher score on the entrance exam to secure the funding. Option D. Decline the donation outright due to the conditional nature, even if it means exacerbating the budget shortfall and potentially impacting the quality of the entrance examination. The correct answer is B. Transparently communicate the university's financial needs to the potential donor. Explore various avenues for ethical fundraising without compromising admission standards, and ensure all admission decisions are based solely on merit as per the established entrance exam criteria. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for resources with the long-term ethical and regulatory obligations of the university. The Farabi University College entrance exam regulations, while not explicitly detailed here, would implicitly govern the integrity of the admissions process. The core challenge lies in ensuring that any decision-making framework prioritizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established academic and administrative policies, even under pressure. The correct approach involves a systematic evaluation of all available options against the established admission criteria and ethical guidelines. This approach is right because it upholds the principles of meritocracy and equal opportunity, which are fundamental to any reputable educational institution. By seeking diverse funding sources and clearly communicating the financial needs to potential donors, the university demonstrates responsible stewardship of its resources and maintains its academic integrity. This aligns with the implicit regulatory framework of any university entrance exam, which aims to select candidates based on their qualifications, not their ability to influence funding. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate financial gain by offering preferential treatment to donors' relatives would be a direct violation of ethical principles and likely contravene the spirit, if not the letter, of the university's admission policies. This creates an unfair advantage, undermines the credibility of the entrance exam, and could lead to legal challenges or reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which involves accepting funds without clear disclosure or accountability, would also be problematic. This could lead to conflicts of interest, mismanagement of funds, and a lack of transparency, all of which are subject to regulatory scrutiny and ethical condemnation. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core problem and the stakeholders involved. Next, they should gather all relevant information, including existing policies, ethical codes, and potential consequences of each action. Then, they should brainstorm a range of possible solutions, evaluating each against established criteria and potential risks. Finally, they should select the option that best aligns with the institution's mission, values, and regulatory obligations, ensuring that the decision is justifiable and defensible. Question 18. Upon reviewing the examination hall during the Farabi University College entrance exam, an invigilator observes a candidate discreetly attempting to consult a small, folded piece of paper concealed within their sleeve. The candidate appears to be glancing at this paper periodically while writing. The invigilator needs to decide on the most appropriate course of action to uphold the integrity of the examination. Option A. Ignore the observation, assuming the paper might contain personal notes unrelated to the exam content, and focus on other candidates. Option B. Continue to monitor the candidate closely for further instances of cheating without intervening or confiscating any materials at this stage. Option C. Immediately confiscate the paper and the candidate's exam, escorting them out of the hall while informing them of the suspected violation. Option D. Discreetly approach the candidate, ask them to put away the paper, and issue a verbal warning without further action. Correct answer is C. Immediately confiscate the paper and the candidate's exam, escorting them out of the hall while informing them of the suspected violation. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam can lead students to seek shortcuts, making it imperative for invigilators to uphold the established rules. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine understanding and prohibited assistance without unfairly penalizing a student. The correct approach involves a direct and immediate intervention to stop the suspected misconduct and report it according to established university procedures. This aligns with the Farabi University College's regulatory framework for entrance examinations, which implicitly or explicitly prohibits any form of cheating or unauthorized assistance. The ethical imperative is to ensure a level playing field for all candidates and maintain the credibility of the examination process. By confiscating the notes and reporting the incident, the invigilator acts in accordance with the principles of fairness and adherence to rules, which are fundamental to academic governance. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation, fearing confrontation, or believing the student might not be cheating. This failure to act violates the invigilator's duty to supervise the examination and uphold its integrity. It creates an unfair advantage for the student and undermines the trust placed in the examination system. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student aggressively or publicly shame them. While the intent might be to stop the behavior, such actions could be unprofessional, potentially escalate the situation unnecessarily, and may not align with the university's disciplinary procedures, which typically involve a formal reporting process rather than on-the-spot punitive measures by the invigilator. A third incorrect approach would be to accept a verbal explanation from the student without further investigation or documentation. This bypasses the established protocol for handling suspected academic misconduct and fails to create a record of the incident, which is crucial for consistent application of university policies. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established rules and procedures. This involves 1. Observation and assessment. Carefully observe the suspected behavior to confirm it is indeed a violation. 2. Immediate discreet intervention. If a violation is confirmed, take immediate but discreet action to stop the behavior. 3. Documentation and reporting. Follow the university's specific protocol for documenting the incident and reporting it to the appropriate authority. 4. Objectivity and fairness. Maintain an objective stance throughout the process, ensuring that actions are based on evidence and not personal bias. Question 19. Market research demonstrates that prospective students from affluent backgrounds often express interest in programs at Farabi University College, and there is a recognized need for increased institutional funding. An admissions committee member is reviewing an application from a student whose academic record is slightly below the stated minimum requirements for a highly competitive program, but whose family has a history of significant philanthropic donations to the university. The committee member is considering how to approach this application, given the dual pressures of maintaining academic standards and potentially enhancing institutional resources. Option A. Recommend admitting the student based on their potential to contribute to the university's financial well-being, provided they show some promise in their personal statement and extracurricular activities. Option B. Recommend admitting the student after a thorough review of their entire application, including academic transcripts, personal statement, letters of recommendation, and extracurricular activities, to determine if they meet the spirit of the admission criteria despite minor deviations in specific metrics. Option C. Recommend discussing the applicant's financial background and potential for donations with the university's development office to gauge the level of contribution before making an admissions decision. Option D. Recommend rejecting the student outright due to their academic record not meeting the explicit minimum requirements, regardless of other factors. The correct answer is A. Recommend admitting the student based on their potential to contribute to the university's financial well-being, provided they show some promise in their personal statement and extracurricular activities. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with the long-term integrity of its admissions process and adherence to regulatory guidelines. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can lead to compromised decision-making, potentially violating ethical principles and specific regulations governing university admissions. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all decisions are fair, transparent, and compliant. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's qualifications against the established admission criteria, without undue influence from external pressures or financial considerations. This aligns with the Farabi University College's commitment to academic merit and fair selection, as implicitly guided by general principles of educational integrity and responsible institutional management. The regulatory framework for university admissions, while not explicitly detailed here, universally emphasizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to stated criteria. Prioritizing a candidate solely based on their potential to contribute financially, especially when their academic profile is borderline, risks undermining the credibility of the admissions process and could be seen as a breach of ethical conduct expected of educational institutions. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize the applicant due to their family's potential financial contributions. This is ethically unsound, as it introduces a conflict of interest and deviates from the principle of admitting students based on their academic suitability and potential to succeed in the program. Could also be interpreted as a violation of any implicit or explicit regulations that mandate fair and equitable admissions processes, potentially leading to accusations of favoritism or corruption. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the applicant without a thorough review, solely because their initial application might not perfectly meet all criteria. While adherence to standards is crucial, a rigid interpretation without considering the applicant's overall profile or potential for growth, especially if they are close to meeting the requirements, could be seen as overly restrictive and lacking in the holistic assessment expected in admissions. This might not directly violate a specific regulation, but could be considered poor professional judgment and a missed opportunity for the institution to demonstrate flexibility within its guidelines. A third incorrect approach would be to seek external advice from individuals not directly involved in the admissions committee, particularly those with financial interests in the university. This introduces undue influence and compromises the confidentiality and impartiality of the admissions process. It bypasses established procedures and could lead to decisions that are not based on objective merit, potentially violating ethical standards of governance and decision-making within an academic institution. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical principles. This involves 1. Understanding and strictly applying the university's admission criteria. 2. Maintaining impartiality and avoiding conflicts of interest. 3. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them. 4. Seeking consensus within the admissions committee for borderline cases. 5. Escalating complex or ethically sensitive situations to appropriate oversight bodies if necessary. This structured approach ensures fairness, transparency, and compliance with the spirit and letter of institutional and any applicable regulatory guidelines. Question 20. Governance review demonstrates that the admissions committee is under pressure to meet enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. A particular applicant, while meeting most of the standard academic requirements, falls slightly below the minimum threshold in one specific area. The admissions officer is aware that admitting this student would significantly contribute to meeting the target, and there is informal pressure from senior management to be flexible. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer? Option A. Postpone the decision on this applicant until closer to the enrollment deadline, hoping that other applicants will fill the remaining spots. Option B. Recommend the applicant for a special waiver of the admission criteria based on the need to meet enrollment targets without a thorough reevaluation of their qualifications. Option C. Admit the applicant immediately to help meet the enrollment target, as the slight deviation from the threshold is unlikely to significantly impact academic performance. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's entire academic record and extracurricular achievements to assess their overall potential and suitability for the program, while strictly adhering to the spirit of the admission criteria and seeking clarification on any ambiguities in the guidelines. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's entire academic record and extracurricular achievements to assess their overall potential and suitability for the program, while strictly adhering to the spirit of the admission criteria and seeking clarification on any ambiguities in the guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's academic aspirations and the university's commitment to upholding academic integrity and fair admission processes. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create an environment where ethical boundaries are tested. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with the principles of fairness and transparency. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of the applicant's qualifications against the established admission criteria, without succumbing to external pressures or personal biases. This aligns with the Farabi University College's regulatory framework, which emphasizes merit-based admissions and adherence to established academic standards. The ethical imperative is to ensure that all applicants are treated equitably and that the integrity of the admission process is maintained. This approach upholds the principle of fairness and ensures that only qualified candidates are admitted, thereby safeguarding the academic reputation of the institution. An incorrect approach would be to bypass or relax the standard admission requirements for the applicant due to the perceived benefit of meeting enrollment targets. This would constitute a breach of the university's admission policies and a violation of the ethical principle of fairness. It undermines the credibility of the admission process and could lead to the enrollment of underqualified students, negatively impacting academic standards. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize the applicant's personal circumstances or connections over their academic merit. While empathy is important, the admission process must be governed by objective criteria. Deviating from these criteria based on personal factors compromises the integrity of the process and sets a dangerous precedent. A third incorrect approach would be to delay or obfuscate the decision-making process in the hope that the enrollment target will be met by other means. This is a form of avoidance that fails to address the core issue and can lead to uncertainty and unfairness for the applicant. It also demonstrates a lack of decisive leadership and adherence to established procedures. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical guidelines. This involves clearly defining the problem, identifying relevant policies and ethical principles, gathering all necessary information, evaluating potential courses of action against these principles, and making a well-reasoned decision. In situations involving admission decisions, this framework necessitates an objective assessment of the applicant's qualifications against the stated criteria, ensuring transparency and fairness throughout the process.